What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Queer Collective Podcast. I'm your host, Karbon.
And I'm Emily.
And welcome to the show. What are we talking about today? What's on the docket?
We are talking about why it's so hard to keep in touch with friends and family. And initially, we had a different podcast topic planned for today, but on Monday, and we are filming this on Tuesday, so yesterday, we were trying to do some yoga, and then suddenly Karbon came at me with some really sad emotions.
Yikes.
And she started talking about how she feels like she's a bad person because you have sort of like neglected your relationships with your family, you haven't gone and seen your dog, you know what I mean? You've really let these relationships slip. And then I started saying that I feel the exact same way. I hadn't seen anyone from my family in like over a month, and I'm really horrible at answering messages, calling people, and for proof, I currently have 194 missed text messages. Can you confirm that?
Wow.
Yeah.
194.
Indeed.
This is crazy. Who are they from?
Everyone. So we both started crying on the living room floor.
And then we talked to our roommate, and he's also feeling the same. He's like, I haven't visited my grandpa in 2 months. And then our other roommate was like, I really need to spend time with my family. And it's like, everybody's feeling it. So we thought you might be feeling it too. So let's talk about it.
So obviously, we don't really know how to exactly solve this problem just yet. We're kind of just like having an open and honest conversation that I hope some other people relate to. But we did get to kind of a conclusion when we were crying on the living room floor of how we want to move forward. So we are going to share those at the end of this conversation.
All those revelations.
And maybe it'll help you feel a bit better and move forward with these emotions. But yeah, how about you kick us off? Give us the lay of the land. How are we going to talk about this today?
So today we're going to be talking about why we've been falling off when it comes to keeping contact and relationships with our family, how it makes us feel, as well as how those emotions further perpetuate these feelings and these behaviors that we've been experiencing.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we're going to tell you the steps that we're going to take to hopefully improve that situation and move forward, being just overall, I guess, a better person.
So let's kick it off. Why do you think we have been falling off with this?
What I've been noticing in our lives is that we tend to take a common theme and then kind of go full throttle with that theme. And the other things in our lives kind of start to be on the back burner because we're so focused on the one thing. So when I say theme, I mean things like, for example, this summer, we told ourselves and we promised each other that the theme of the summer was going to be to seize the summer to its fullest potential, as well as go on as many adventures as we can and reconnect with friendships as much as we can. Because previously, what we had been feeling really terrible about was not following up with friends and maintaining friendships through communication and hanging out and all of the different things.
And we talked about that in a podcast.
We did. So when we told ourselves that we were going to focus on those main themes, what ended up happening was that the rest started to kind of fall apart a little bit.
Yeah.
So because we were so focused on seizing the summer, having adventures, and making friends, as well as nurturing existing friendships, we kind of fell off the wagon a little bit with other things in our lives.
Most particularly family.
The thing is that when we told ourselves we were going to seize the summer, we really did that. And for that, we should be proud of ourselves. The thing that became really, really difficult, and what I'm realizing now, is it's really hard, at least in my current state of mind, to balance friendships with balancing adventures, with balancing seizing a moment, with balancing family, and then balancing work. And then on top of that, add another layer, balancing our relationship together.
And like personal fitness, taking care of yourself.
Personal health, emotional health as well is very, very important.
It's a lot to balance.
It's all of these things put together, and
that's so overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, I want you to know that you're not alone, because we're experiencing this too. So for us, that's where we kind of started to drop the ball. It's the overwhelmingness of everything that we want to do and feeling like there's not enough hours in a day, there's not enough time within even a season, like summer, to do everything that you say that you're gonna do. I feel really, really terrible when I'm trying to really embrace and take advantage of an opportunity and something else in my life starts to fall apart. In this case, I do feel like I've been really dropping the ball on family, but that could have been anything, right? Like that could have been our friendships, that could have been our work, that could have been our personal relationship or our personal health. Really, it does not matter what it is that is falling off. The point is that you recognize it and then you try to improve it. So throwing it back to you, I want to know how you feel about this situation, this circumstance, and what is it that's going through your head and your heart in regards to emotions?
Honestly, it's this vicious circle for me. Like, I always do this. It doesn't even matter if I'm focused on seizing the summer. Like, this is like a constant thing for me. Maybe I dedicate myself to calling like my grandparents or my mom every single week. And the longest I've done that is for like a month, and then I fall off. Once I start falling off, almost every single day I wake up, I'm like doing my morning yoga. I think about that person. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't called this person in so long. I'm such a horrible person. And that's like the message in my head. But then I start building it up so big, this task of just like calling this person or making some time to go see them, and I make it a chore. So in my head, calling my grandma for like 5 to 10 minutes seems like the biggest task ever. I start getting this like social anxiety, this phone anxiety to just call someone who I love, and it just makes me feel worse and worse and worse. And then that keeps going on. Every day I start to feel worse. Every day I start to feel more guilty. I just start to think that I'm a bad person.
I know exactly what you're feeling, and I have felt that, and I'm feeling that now when it comes to falling off, and like making something as simple as a phone call seem like a chore, especially to someone you love, can make you feel like absolute garbage, and does. So why do you think it is that we build these things up in our head so big?
I think it really boils down to us just trying to balance so much. Like we were saying, like there's so much constantly on the go, and you're constantly balancing these things, and it feels like there's urgent things every single day, that these phone calls and meeting someone just always gets pushed to the bottom of the list. So I think it's ultimately about priorities, like what's most important to you, but recognizing those priorities, like family often should be at the top of that priority list, which I do. Like I recognize that, even though I keep perpetuating this behavior, and that makes me feel like a worse person.
You think that part of why it starts to become a chore, part of why it starts to feel like a really daunting task, is because of the guilt that you end up sort of formulating out of that lack of attention paid to that person.
The monster of it just keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it just seems like this unbearable task to do. When in reality, once I finally make that time, when I get off the phone call, I feel so much lighter. I'm like, wow, like why don't I call them more? You know what I mean? Like that was so nice. I could tell that they really appreciated that phone call. I don't know. I feel like I need a therapist's opinion. I'm like, I am at a loss for my behavior. Truly.
And I don't think it's just you, because I'm also at a loss for my behavior. Exactly what you said, of like, I feel so much lighter when I call them. I feel better. I feel happier. I feel like they appreciated it. I appreciated it. So why is it so daunting? You know, I think part of it is that we build certain things up in our heads because we start to feel the lack of connection, and then the lack of connection makes us feel like it does perpetuate that feeling of I'm too busy, or the feeling of I have too many things that come before that, or these things are important, I got to take care of them now, I'll call them later. You know, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of like, you feel a disconnect, you perpetuate it, you feel more disconnect, you perpetuate it more, and then you feel really guilty, and then it's this vicious cycle. Or you do get busy, that's where you start.
Sponsored by Vizzy. I will say, in terms of how I think I'm going to address this, is it makes me think back to like two teachings, which we've shared in sort of other contexts in different podcasts. And the first one being, we talked about this in a podcast about work and motivating yourself through purpose. And that was kind of switching your mindset from I have to do this to I get to do this.
Right.
And that takes your mind away from like, this is a chore to this is something like beautiful and wonderful that I get to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because in my head, like I directly tell myself over and over again that, oh my God, this is such a chore. I have to do this. I have to do this. I use the word I have to do this instead of telling myself consciously in my mind, I get to do this. I'm so excited to talk to my grandma. You know what I mean? She is such a lovely, wonderful person who has done so much for me, and I'm excited to talk to her and see what her day is like, you know?
Yeah.
And that is one thing I'm going to consciously be changing in my mind is I love these people. It's not a chore. I'm excited to call them. And it really does start with the way that you're talking to yourself. And that's honestly how I started getting myself excited to do my work every day, is changing it from, oh my God, I have to edit this video to I get to edit this video. Like it's a mindset change, truly. And then the second thing that I'm going to propose to everyone is the priority, you know? And for us, we consciously told ourselves this summer that we're going to prioritize friends.
Yeah.
And
then it came true, right?
Yeah.
So if you kind of tell yourself, maybe you have a list of like your top five priorities or the top 5 things that are the most important to you. And I feel like even the act of writing something down kind of further ingrains it into your head. It's more like solidly there, if that makes sense. And you tend to think about it more and you tend to live by it more when you write it down and you see it. You see in your own words what the most important things are to you. And if family is one of them, then you're going to start behaving accordingly more and more often, right? I feel like there will be times, certainly, where we'll feel like we're falling off here and there, not necessarily with family. It could be with anything. But if we sort of reinstate what our priorities are and the things that are the most important to us, then it'll bring us back to that behavior where we're keeping up with those things that are the most important. And I feel like that's how you start to achieve balance.
Yeah. And one of the biggest teachings I would say on that topic that we move forward with was that this was something that you kept repeating that I was really, really appreciative of, is that you're always going to be busy. Like it's so easy to tell yourself, oh, work is so busy right now. I have all these deadlines. I can't do this. I can't do that. Yeah. And we sat down and realized, because we kept saying that to each other, is that it's always busy. Like we run a business, we have full-time jobs, like our lives are always going to be busy, but you cannot like work your life away because it's so easy because of deadlines, because of whatever, to just say that this is my top priority right now, when really it shouldn't be. Like in your life, relationships, the bonds that you have with people, that is what fulfills you and brings you joy. And that should really be at the top of your list. At least for me, I feel like it should be.
Absolutely. And you know what I think would be helpful for me, certainly, and maybe for a lot of you listening right now, is that, so we tend to have a physical schedule / planner, right? And what I am starting to do now with the things that are the most important to me is that I schedule them in ahead of time. So like I'm scheduling it in October, in November, whatever, as far ahead as I can fathom, which is not that far, by the way. It's like a month.
She literally writes down Karbon goes home and then extends it over the weekend. It's cute.
Yeah, I start to do that. So as you start to do that and you see it ahead of time, if you schedule in to your daily life or your monthly life, whatever it may be, the most important things first, then you can fill in the rest with all the other things.
Wow, that's a good tip. I like that.
Right? So if you have a physical calendar or you're on your phone, whatever, you look at the month of October and you say, this day I'm going to do that. That day I'm going to visit family. This over here, I'm going to do this other thing that's really a priority for me. This day I'm going to do like my art or like whatever it is. And then now you have the most important things laid out for you. Now you know what's the most important. once you have the most important stuff in your calendar and you've made time for it, you've taken the energy to give it its appropriate amount of time. Now you can start to fill it with all the other stuff. Maybe an event comes up that you're like, that randomly pops up and you're like, oh, wait, yeah, I scheduled all the other stuff. Yeah, I have time for that event. Or maybe somebody asks you to hang out and you look at your stuff and you're like, yeah, all the other stuff is there, all the important things. So yeah, I have time to hang out. Or
with work. Like people asking us like, can you film this on this day? It's like, no, because I've prioritized doing this with my dad,
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to say too, before we move on, I really like the tip you just made about doing the agenda thing. And I want to do that when I get home.
Nice. And regardless of your life or your work schedule, however it is that, whatever situation that you're in right now, I do feel like to the best of our ability, we are able to set time aside for these things, for the most important things. When we start to allow the less important things get ahead of that, we start to lose that balance. There's a really helpful chart that I came across a while back. I think it was either in the Atomic Habits book or the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book, one of those. And I believe it's called the Eisenhower chart. So just picture, for those of you only listening to this podcast, just picture an X and Y axis, right? So the Y axis represents level of importance, right? The x-axis represents the level of urgency. And there's 4 quadrants. The top right corner means most urgent and most important. The top left quadrant means very urgent but not important. The bottom left quadrant means not urgent and not important. And then the right bottom quadrant means very important but not urgent. So with this chart, I have learned that you can really distinguish what is a priority versus what isn't if you just use that chart. And you can use this for the most important things in your life, but you can also use it for everyday tasks. If you have a to-do list, I guarantee you there's items on that to-do list that are more important than others. And there's items on that to-do list that are also more urgent than others. So just because something is urgent doesn't mean it's important. Just because something is important doesn't mean it's urgent, right? So when you separate all of your, let's say that you do have a list of things that are that you have to do throughout the month, the week, whatever. You separate that into most important and most urgent versus and work your way through the quadrant chart to least important and least urgent. Whatever lands in that most important and most urgent chart, that's the thing that you have to focus on first, right? But another thing that you shouldn't neglect is things that are most important but not very urgent are the things that you have to tackle second. Right?
Interesting.
When it comes to things that are urgent but not important, either it's a quick thing that you have to get done and out of the way, or it's something that you delegate to somebody else. Right? And
I'll delegate it to you, my lady servant.
What the hell? What? It's really, I think, very important to separate these things because, for example, going home to see my family is very important, but it's not urgent. Like, I don't have to do it today. I can do it this weekend, but it's not a tonight kind of thing, right? So it's still very crucial to pay attention to that, but you have to know how to separate things. And I feel like that quadrant chart really helps you to schedule it out over the course of your day, your week, your month, whatever it may be. I encourage you to either use the Eisenhower quadrant chart or maybe just have a to-do list and separate it from most important to least, or do the thing with the planner where you put in the most important things to you first and then fill up the rest of the schedule. Whatever it is that you choose, whatever it is that you decide, I think all of these things that I just mentioned are very helpful tools to just help you understand how to plan your time and achieve more balance.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that I have been lacking, that you've been lacking,
Yeah.
and it's something that we can improve on. And I think it's something that everyone can consistently improve on. I haven't ever come across a person that I see perfect balance in.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's definitely something that is always evolving and you're always working on.
Yeah, I will say we have one roommate who is so good at calling all of his family, but there isn't enough balance there because he's always glued to his phone.
Yeah.
You know?
Or, so it's
hard.
always being pulled one way or the other. Like I've never seen like perfect balance. So really it's just a thing that we always have to be improving on, and it's something that we always have to be working on, and knowing that we're not going to get it right all the time, certainly, and
having some compassion for yourself.
Have some compassion for yourself. Yeah. And just know that you can do better, but you also shouldn't, feel super guilty and just like a terrible person for falling off a little bit. Just come back to the tools that help you get there.
Totally. Yeah. Like that's your inner critic talking. And at the end of the day, your family, 9 times out of 10, when you do come back and reach out, there isn't like anger or hostility there at you. Usually they're just happy that you reached out and they're willing to accept that you were busy, etc. But I think just stop making it into a huge monster.
Yeah. So that is all that we have today for you guys. If this video was at all helpful for you, make sure that you leave a like and subscribe and comment down below ways that you help yourself stay balanced. And if you've gained anything out of this video, if you're going to use the Eisenhower method, if you're going to use the planner method, or any other method that you already have, leave it in the comments below because we're always learning as well. That is it for today, and we'll see you in the next pod.
Peace. Bye.